The ovarian cycle. At sexual maturity, each of a woman's ovaries contain about 2 lakh immature eggs, called primary oocytes. A primary oocyte is diploid, 2N, and is arrested in prophase 1 of meiosis. A layer of follicle cells surrounds each primary oocyte. Together, an oocyte and its follicle cells make up a follicle. An ovarian cycle lasts about 28 days, beginning at the first day of menstruation or menses. During the first 7 days of the cycle, 6 to 12 oocytes begin to mature each month. As the follicles develop, the follicle cells communicate with oocytes and provide them with nutrients through pores called gap junctions. Each oocyte grows larger and the surrounding follicle cells divide, proliferating to produce thousands of follicle cells in a single follicle. By day 7, all but one of the developing follicles begins to degenerate. The remaining follicle continues to develop, and its follicle cells continue to pump it with nourishment and also supply it with proteins and informational molecules needed for early stages of development. The maturing primary oocyte completes meiosis 1 and divides into 2 haploid N cells. Each of these cells receives half the chromosomes. However, one cell, called a polar body, receives very little cytoplasm. The other, now a secondary oocyte, enters meiosis 2 and stays there until fertilization. At day 14, ovulation occurs, and the secondary oocyte erupts from the ovary. The oviduct contains microscopic cilia that beat and draw in the released oocytes. This immature egg enters an oviduct, where it may become fertilized by a sperm cell and complete meiosis. The follicle cells that are left behind develop into a small mass of endocrine tissue called the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum remains in the ovary for 2 weeks, secreting the hormones estrogen and progesterone. At the end of the ovarian cycle, if the woman is not pregnant, the corpus luteum disintegrates. Each month, the ovarian cycle is tightly coordinated with the uterine cycle. In the uterine cycle, the lining of the uterus builds up, forming elongated glands, and then sloughs off. The cycle begins with the sloughing of the uterine lining. This is the first day of menses, also called menstruation. After menstruation, the uterine lining starts to grow again and to prepare for implantation of an embryo. During this phase of the uterine cycle, up until ovulation, the uterine lining proliferates and the glands that make up the uterine lining elongate. Capillary buds grow into glands to supply this tissue with nutrients. Just before menstruation occurs again, the capillary buds degenerate and no longer delivers the surrounding glandular tissue with nutrients. During menstruation, this tissue dies and sloughs off through the vagina to the outside body.